Now, the SCM boss in SAPS, when he was here last week, we had an argument with him because he was so convinced that even though the expenditure hereof was irregular, but there was value for money. And my argument to him was that there was no value for money because in his statement, he said the contract or the service provider underperformed. That's what he said. And he said that the contract was terminated even before the underperformance was corrected. So what is your take on that?
The issues of the performance of the contract would have been dealt with by the end user working together with supply chain management. And I heard him explaining the definition of irregular expenditure to say it is expenditure that is incurred in contravention to prescripts that relates to supply chain management. However, the service was rendered. So the issue of value for money, for me, as I indicated, those that would have requested these services, thereafter they receive invoices, they certify to say we have received services and we are happy with these services. And they load invoices on the system for payment. For me, the reason why we are pushing for this forensic investigation is to probe exactly this. To say, on the other hand, there is an indication to say there were matters that were reported to the supply chain boss and they were dealt with. On the other hand, the end user is certified that they are satisfied with the work that was done by this one. So there's a bit of a contradiction. So we want the investigation to then unearth these particular gaps and tell us what exactly happened in this particular regard. So that is why we are pushing for this, because it will tell us exactly to say, is the end user or did the end user certify things that they were not supposed to certify? Did anyone engage themselves in unethical conduct or the elements of fraud where they would have certified things where work was not done? So this investigation must give us that, and we need to deal with this without any fear or favor to ensure that this serves as a deterrent and we never get to this point again.
So a determination will be made by the report of the investigation.
The forensic investigation will tell us
will make a determination
where services indeed rendered and where those services services that we could actually say this was value for money. If people certified things and work was not done properly, then it means those people engage themselves in unethical conduct and they ought to be dealt with.
So if I get you correctly, you are saying at this stage you can't make that determination.
I can't make that determination.
Okay. On page 4, paragraph 10, you are making an indication that there's a new organizational structure which makes some amendments in the current structure. But specifically, this organizational structure makes the SCM to directly report to the CFO, to the CFO's office. And I think you went further to say it has not been implemented as yet. Now, do you find this, does this accord with rationality? Shouldn't the SCM unit be a distinct unit? Is it not going to overburden the CFO when you integrate the SCM unit into their office, into the office of the CFO? Are we not supposed to separate powers and the functions of the CFO and the SCM?
It will be a lot of work. As I indicated, SAPS is a huge institution. We have a big asset base. We have got issues that we need to deal with from a financial point of view. It will be a lot of work. I think the implementation in terms of this particular structure differs from department to department. In small departments, you will find supply chain management reporting to the CFO because it will not make any, it's not rational that supply chain is separate in a department that is deemed to be small. In a department as huge as SAPS, that was the rationale why it was split in the first place. But I believe the leadership have got a reason why this decision was taken in this particular regard. But it will be a lot of work. It will require all the hands on deck to ensure that we work together and we ensure that we uphold the law in terms of ensuring that people comply to supply chain prescriptions. But it will be a lot of work.
Yeah, because my view, my honest view is that this is not an ideal mechanism. If anything, it will overburden the CFO. I'm asking that because this committee has a responsibility to make recommendations on policy reforms. So you can lobby us if you are saying, based on experience, this is not going to help the situation. If anything, it will exacerbate problems that are intrinsic in the operations of SAPS. So I just wanted to give you that leeway or that liberty, but we are not making use of it. So tell me, do you have, is there a committee in SAPS called Irregular, Fruitless and Wasteful Expenditure Committee?
I'm responsible for the Fruitless and Wasteful Expenditure Register. I'm the custodian. So I do have a committee, a very vibrant committee that meets from time to time to ensure that we are on top of the situation. You will note that fruitless and wasteful expenditure has actually declined in this regard. We have made a lot of work. On the other hand, the Irregular Expenditure Register is the custodian of supply chain management. When I came in 2019, I established that particular committee, and that particular committee is supposed to be a function, but I cannot confirm or vouch for its effectiveness at this point in time. We have since requested supply chain management to revive that committee and ensure that that committee is effective and is able to assist us. However, supply chain management head office is present. They do go to provinces. They do assist in terms of these transactions that are there to ensure that where there is uncertainty at the cost center, they are then able to can guide those particular cost centers. So it was two different committees. We do have the fruitless and wasteful expenditure one that is within the space, and the irregular expenditure one that is within the supply chain management space. Yeah,
no, thank you for that comprehensive report. You know what, the approach in this conversation that we're having is that I'm trying to test all the amendments which have been put before this committee in relation to matters which are financially, which relate to finance in SAPS. Now, there is an issue here about the blue light contract in Gauteng of irregular expenditure. Have you ever come across any finding of irregular expenditure with regards to that contract? Blue lights in Gauteng, if you know it.
I think those were investigations that took place prior to my arrival in head office. I have heard about those investigations and I've heard about the outcomes and the irregularities in terms of those. But those would be investigations that would have commenced for my arrival in Gauteng.
No, I'm saying during your tenure, have you ever dealt with a matter similar to that? Maybe to give you a hint, I think that matter was part of the reasons for the suspension of the former acting National Commissioner, General Patlane. Have you ever come, during your tenure, have you ever come across that kind of situation?
I've heard about it. As I indicated, when I arrived, those processes were at the tail end. When I arrived in head office, they were at the tail end. And when I arrived, it was General Stoll who was the National Commissioner. And I'm aware that those processes were reaching the tail, were at the tail end in this regard.
You know, one thing as I'm landing and as I'm concluding, that I can commend in your statement, which is very commendable, is that you are not waffling and rambling. You are just dealing with issues which are related to your responsibility. And for that, you have made the work of this committee to be very easy. We are not dealing with a person who's all over the place talking about things she doesn't know anything about. So that's my compliment to you. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
It's amazing that you are a chief financial officer, but you don't sit on a bid adjudication committee. Why?
The circular from National Treasury says the bid adjudication committee may be chaired by the CFO. It doesn't say must. As I indicated, with the structure within the organization, you have supply chain management that is separate with its own divisional commissioner and a CFO that is separate. So that is a structural decision by the organization to say, because supply chain has its own divisional commissioner, the divisional commissioner will chair. So the rules from Treasury indicates that it may. So I believe it leaves room for discretion in terms of a department.
So I'll be wrong to ask you why tenders, like for instance, the one current, the parts, which has been going on for some time, which is all parts, if I remember. There was an AutoZone before who religiously have a tender for over a decade. As we speak here, I think that tender has expired as well. And why so? Why the deadlines? You know, I know that there's that 180 days extension, but why? Why? Because you know that the tender on this particular day is going to end. You have to advertise it early, but you leave it until late. Hence, there's the so-called the capture in this government departments.
There are processes in place, Chairperson, that are regulated by, I believe, during the era of General Sithole, there was a contract management strategy that was put in place and a contract management committee. And supply chain management have a system in place where they will notify the end user 12 months before the expiry of that contract to say, end user, this contract is coming to an end. What are you going to do about it? It's end users who do not do, their inefficiencies, they make the system to be inefficient. So supply chain management does in writing, and I've seen them informing the end users to say, your procurement vehicle in terms of this particular tender is coming to an end. We want feedback from you in terms of the way forward. It's just inefficiencies in the system. So there are processes in place to pick up those, and supply chain management is monitoring those particular issues.
Do you agree that there's you need to improve on that?
We need to. There are inefficiencies, whether deliberate or not, those are the issues. But there needs to be an improvement in that area.
No, there is inefficiency on that.
Yes.
I can guarantee you if we agree to each other on that one. And do you participate in or anyway chair the SAPS committee on irregular and wasteful expenditure?
No, Chair.
What are the roles and responsibility of the wasteful irregular expenditure committee, the current one?
As I indicated, Chair, that we have separated these committees. There is a fruitless and wasteful expenditure committee that it is being managed within my environment, and irregular expenditure is managed within a general finance environment. As I indicated, in 2019 when I came, I established that particular committee. And I cannot vouch for its effectiveness at this point in time. However, we have spoken to supply chain management to say those are some of the structures that we must not allow them to collapse or die, because they assist us to ensure that then we have an extra eye and we monitor and hold people to account in this regard.
So you say you can't vouch for
I do not chair the irregular expenditure.
No, what I'm saying, you said you established that.
Yes.
But you cannot vouch for.
I established it when supply chain was still my responsibility. Remember when I came in 2019, supply chain and finance were together, and then the structure separated them. So since then I was not responsible for supply chain management. I cannot vouch for its effectiveness. If it was effective, I would have to be part of it, but there's not been meetings that I'm aware of that has taken place in terms of that committee. However, we have recruited supply chain management to ensure that we don't allow processes and internal controls to have gaps unnecessarily. So that is an area that must be improved in this regard, Chair.
Thank you. Lieutenant General, as you know that we have limited times, and I understand that some of my questions will just thrown out of the window. But let me ask you, What were the findings in relating to the Gauteng blue light contract?
Chair, as I indicated, when I came in to take over as head office, those investigations were concluded in this regard. People were undergoing those processes in terms of discipline and so on and so on. So I am not more conversant in terms of the actual findings that were made through those investigations, because when I came in 2019, those processes were concluded. However, some of those contracts were deemed to be irregular and they were reported as such.
So in terms of the processes, you were not involved in awarding of that blue?
I was still in the province.
In the province?
Yes.
Which province? Free State?
Free State.
Yes. Who signed the blue light contracts? I think by now you know, because as a CFO, when this matter was raised and this matter is in court and people were arrested, obviously you have the knowledge.
I would believe that it would be the then chairperson of the BAC, whoever was the chairperson of the BAC, because in terms of the delegations as outlined by General Fani, the chairperson of SAPS, the chairperson of the BAC, is then delegated the powers to then sign these contracts on behalf of the accounting officer.
So let me put it to you. So it would be wrong for anyone to blame the acting then National Co-Commissioner General Patlane.
When you read section 4 of the Public Finance Management, that talks about delegation of authority. It says the accounting officer has got specific responsibilities, but he can delegate those responsibilities. However, it does not divest the accounting officer from responsibility as a result of the conducting of the work of those that he would have delegated this. So the accounting officer remains accountable in terms of his or her roles as outlined in PFMA. So when you delegate, it does not divest you from responsibilities of those that would have been doing the work on your behalf.
So it was not for Gauteng, then I think the provincial commissioner was Dilang, if I remember well.
Sorry, Chair?
What I'm asking is that the responsibility lies then with the provincial co-commissioner, or, as you said, it lies with the national commissioner as an accounting officer?
The accounting officer takes the ultimate accountability. And then he has the responsibility to ensure that those that are responsible for those lapses are held to account.
But if I may ask, like you as a CFO, you must take responsibility as well in matters relating to finances of South African Police Service, am I right?
If I'm found to have erred
No, I'm asking, is that like you, the responsibility, it's your responsibility to make sure that the finances of SAPS are above a reproach?
Yes.
Now, have then, in your knowledge, the acting national commission signed that contract?
I cannot comment on that. I have not seen who has signed the contract. Hence, I said, since I started, I have learned that the structure in SAPS allows for the national commissioner to delegate those responsibilities to the BAC chairperson. So I have not seen it with my eyes in terms of who exactly signed that particular contract. So
in your view, let me put it to you, or if I may ask, if he has not signed that contract, should he be responsible for that contract?
I would repeat, if he had delegated functions to a specific group of people to execute responsibilities on his behalf, the ultimate accountability rests with him. It would then be incumbent upon him to deal with those that would have failed in the execution of those delegated responsibilities.
So in other words, for him to be fired, you say it was correct in your view?
I am not saying that.
No, I'm just asking.
I'm not saying that. I'm not privy to the aspects that were taken into account during his processes that were dealt with.
Yeah, but if it was only fired for that, what's your view on that?
I'm not aware in terms of what was taken into account to come.
No, I'm saying if he was fired for that, what's your view on that?
Chair, I don't think I have a view, because I am not privy to the reasons that were on the table in terms of his release.
Did SAPS have value for that contract in your view? Or you had no interest at all to know
Which
exactly
contract?
what happened?
Which contract,
The
Chair?
blue light contract.
Chair, I am repeating that that particular investigation was concluded while I was still in the province, and those processes of investigations and consequence management were unfolding and were at the tail end when I arrived. So it is a matter that I have not set aside time to interrogate because we then allowed those processes to then take their own course. So when I came in 2019, I then dealt with other processes, a matter that I have not set time aside to interrogate.
Yeah, I understand you distance yourself completely, but you've been long in the SAP as CFO. And when all these matters went to court, obviously, I mean, as a CFO, the interest of knowing exactly what happened. But let me ask you, as a Chief Financial Officer, are you playing any role in coordinating the work of the Audit General with SAPS?
Yes.
If so, what's your role?
I play the biggest role in terms of coordinating all audit activities, including the Office of the Auditor General. I am the nodal point for SAPS to ensure that the audit activities run smoothly, from the engagement letter to the audit strategy to coordinating all stakeholders in the SAPS to ensure that we cooperate with the assurance providers, as well as ensuring that there is effectiveness of the running of the audit committee of SAPS.
You know, because today the chair was not giving us enough time, you know, but let's continue. You know, there is a specific material irregularities relating to a 24 million payment to a supplier of breaching the contract. Can you provide, do you know about that?
I am aware of that matter.
What led to that material irregularity?
As I indicated when I came in, those were the investigations that were dealt with. I have learned that it was an issue where SAPS would have awarded a contract but failed to participate in that particular contract, and the service provider took SAPS to court, and the issue of breach of contract was put on the table.
So which might lead to an irregular expenditure again, or?
It was a breach of contract, the 24 million, as a result of SAPS not having utilized that particular contract. We had raised, I believe there was an amount that we raised as fruitless expenditure out of this entire process as well.
Now, you know, there was this so-called Operation Vula, Umkoti, which were not used to solve crime, in my view, but was to rescue the Zamazamas, who illegally ventured into those abandoned mines. And the kingpins of those abandoned mines are still not being arrested as we speak. Do you agree with me on that?
The operational environment will be best suited to respond to the issues of kingpins and who has been arrested in this regard.
Yeah, but CFO, remember, in terms of the expenditure and the budget of SAPS, you are responsible for it. To help the national, as you said, the accounting officer. You can't distance yourself from everything. That it's not your responsibility. You don't know about anything. It can't be. But let me put it to you. Remember, people were complaining about the budget of the PKTT. What's your take on that? Because for me, of what I'm seeing, the 436 million or 438 million is value for money, as compared to what I'm talking about now, the Zamazama issue. That the Zamazama issue, the issue was not to arrest those people who are committing crime. It was more about saving the illegal people. And the kingpins, as I said earlier, as you say, is not your responsibility.